Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something truly incredible. We're exploring the spiritually epic life of a prophet whose very existence began as, literally, an absolute miracle. We're talking about the pure soul, the story of Prophet Yaḥyā. Let's unpack these sources together and see how a life defined by just extraordinary piety and wisdom became a crucial bridge in the Abrahamic tradition.
It really makes you wonder, right? How exactly does a child born from a biologically impossible miracle go on to change the world? How does one single life, granted against all physical odds, end up illuminating an entire generation? Well, to figure that out, we actually have to start before he was even born.
Which brings us to part 1, a miraculous prayer answered by the divine. So the story actually begins in the sacred halls of Jerusalem with his father, the Prophet Zakariyya. The sources tell us that, physically speaking, Zakariyya had lost all worldly hope of having a son. The texts are incredibly vivid here. They describe him as a man so advanced in age that his bones were frail and his hair was completely white. Plus, his wife had always been barren. And yet, despite all of that, he still prayed with this incredible, deep yearning for a righteous heir to continue his prophetic mission.
And against absolute biological impossibility, the divine answered that sincere call. But Zakariyya wasn't just given any son, he was given a child named Yahya. Now what's really fascinating is that the texts note this name had literally never been given to anyone before him. It was undeniable, living proof that the divine can bypass the laws of nature whenever and however he chooses.
Naturally, Zakariyya asked how he would know this miracle was actually happening. The answer? He was struck with a divine silence. Think about that for a second. For 3 full days, a man whose entire life was about preaching and guiding people couldn't speak a single word. He could only communicate through gestures. He was commanded to just quietly remember his Lord morning and evening. It was this profound, quiet wonder that set a deeply spiritual stage for Yahya's birth, showing everyone that while human tongues were silenced, the divine will was actively at work.
So that leads us to part 2, wisdom from a young age. You know, while most kids are just trying to figure out the world and playing around, Yahya was already completely transcending it. The texts make a point to highlight his total lack of interest in the frivolous games that usually consume children. While the other kids were out playing, he was endowed with profound wisdom and this remarkably pure heart. His focus was already anchored to something so much higher. Allah granted him excellence and deep knowledge while he was still just a little boy.
Moving on to part 3, the burden of the call. As he grew up, all that early wisdom crystallized into a massive spiritual responsibility. Looking closely at the sources, we see exactly how he embraced the pure religion with this fierce, intense passion for knowledge. He was, of course, a delight to his parents, but he also took on the incredibly heavy burden of succeeding his father, taking up the mantle and calling people back to the worship of the one God.
And this was the divine command delivered to him. "O Yahya, take the book with force." Now, let's be clear. This didn't mean physical violence or anything like that. It meant taking hold of the scripture with unshakable strength, firm resolve, and uncompromising dedication. He was being urged to carry out his mission, confirm the word of Allah, and stand as this thunderous voice of truth and justice in a society that really needed it. This brings us to part 4, an exemplar of character.
But you know, what truly set Yaḥyā apart wasn't just his strict adherence to his prophetic duty. It was the flawless, incredibly gentle way he carried himself. The sources list these absolutely beautiful traits. From his true piety, or taqwa, flowed incredible kindness, forbearance, and this absolute humility that defined literally every interaction he had.
And it's so fascinating how his immense spiritual status is grounded in something as everyday and relatable as his behavior at home. Despite being this mighty prophet, he was incredibly kind to his elderly parents. The texts emphasize that he surpassed all his peers in his love and obedience to them, never showing even a hint of arrogance or rebellion. It's a great reminder that the highest spiritual peaks are often reached through the humblest acts of family devotion. Finally, let's look at part 5, his eternal legacy. A character this pure doesn't just impact their own time, right? Their legacy echoes across all of history. In the prophetic continuum, Yaḥyā stood as a truly vital bridge. He was the culmination of the priestly line of Zakariyya, sure, but he also served as the immediate predecessor and maternal cousin to Prophet Īsā, also known as Jesus.
Yahya's crucial role was to prepare the hearts of the people right before the Messiah's arrival.
And this grand, highly resonant conclusion from the Quran seals his eternal legacy with a divine blessing across every single stage of his existence. Though his journey on this earth was marked by intense trial and ultimately sacrifice, his very name, Yahya, literally translates to the one who lives. And he does live on as the ultimate symbol of purity. He was blessed on the day he entered this world through a miracle, blessed on the day he left it, and promised peace on the day he will be resurrected.
So when we look at our modern world, a world so often driven by ego, noise, and this constant push for personal glory, we really have to ask ourselves, how can we channel the quiet, unwavering purity of Prophet Yaḥyā in our own lives? It shows us that true strength is found in holding fast to the truth while maintaining a deeply humble heart. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Keep looking deeper, and I'll see you next time.